You're listening to Engineuity, the podcast that dives into the wonderful world of everything industrial. From the birth of the first combustion engine to breakthrough hybrid power technologies, Engineuity examines just about everything the industry has to offer. The podcast provides a platform for industry leaders, engineers, scientists, and small business owners to educate listeners about past, present, and future industries across the planet.
I'm Zach Turner, president with Anderson Industrial Engines. I've been with the company since 2007. I came to the company as an engineer and kind of worked through a bunch of roles into where I'm at today, and part of the family that owns and manages the company.
Kyle?
Yeah, I'm Kyle Kimmerling, and I'm a design engineer, and I started with Anderson Industrial in 2005. Started off as a mechanical engineer, had a few different titles over the years.
Cody?
My name is Cody Mahrt, design engineering manager. I've been with the company about 10 years now, just over 10 years, and then started as a mechanical engineer and kind of come out from there.
Tony?
Yeah, Tony Domenici, business development for Anderson Industrial Engines. Been with Anderson since the acquisition of HG Makelum in 2019, and prior to that, was vice president and general manager for HG Makelum back to 2016.
I'll introduce myself, even though I will probably cut myself out, hopefully. But I'm Matt Turner. I've been here at AIE since 2018. I manage the marketing and dealer development teams.
Cool. Do we want more about the history of the company a little bit?
Yeah, you want to talk through kind of just a brief history?
Yeah. So AIE's been around since 1974. Kind of started as a division in a different company before that, but on its own since 1974. The first brand we represented for industrial engines was Ford Power Products, which has been disbanded, still around in a couple of different forms. We've also been with Honda engines and Kubota engines since the early 80s, and recently added on JCB diesel in about 2016. So we really run the gamut from about 0 to 150 horsepower on spark-ignited product, and from 0 to 200 horsepower on diesel. And we represent those products in a variety of different states, but primarily in kind of like central and western U.S., all the way out to Hawaii and Guam.
Nice. Today I think we want to specifically talk a little bit about something we've been doing for a while, but I've been doing more and more recently, which is our own product development. You want to kind of go through maybe some of the first early projects that we started in terms of product development? The first one I can think of is the Sentinel. I don't know if that was the first
just in terms
foray
of
into
product.
Yeah, some type of product that we developed in house that wasn't for.
Well, the roots probably go back further than that. So we built power units for the irrigation market with Ford engines all the way back from the 70s. Where if I can borrow some Doug language, they were welding stuff together, channel together and hammering stuff together back in the shop. But we've been building irrigation power units since the beginning of the company. And that's, that was kind of a slow burn development over a long period of time, with essentially just designing stuff to fill a particular customer's need. We'd have somebody that said, hey, it'd be great if I could get a sheet metal enclosure on this, or if I could get this option or this feature or this capability. And so for a long time, we just kind of were totally reactive. We'd design and build and test what the customer asked for. And we would kind of just bolt on more and more stuff to that product lineup in terms of power units and generator sets. And then there's a few other products along the way. One of our injection pump protection devices we call the Sentinel is something we did a number of years ago, just reacting to a particular failure mode that we saw with some injection pumps. And we have a few other bits and pieces like that, some of our crankcase ventilation protection systems and things. But far and away, the power unit and generator set program has been the most diverse, wide-ranging design project. And I was actually trying to go back and figure out where that started. in its current iteration. And I think I was back to like 2015 before I quit chasing emails. And that was really like coming out of Tier 3 and the Flex program is when I think we finally sat down and we're like, okay, we need some order to this chaos, right? We've just been building, the next thing sales asked for, a customer asked for. So, what does this look like if we get to do like a ground up redesign? Because all the engines we were working with are going away. We got a whole new lineup of engines, and so that's really the beginning of the current what we call P series and G series power units and generator sets.
What were for Cody and Kyle, for you guys, what were the early conversations for when we start talking about our own product development of the P and G series? What was that like for you guys? That's a whole new venture for that engineering department.
It kind of was. I mean, we had designed up some basic kind of enclosure power units before, but I think the biggest thing is trying to provide for our customers the whole integration for Tier 4, because we knew that some of those customers were going to struggle with it. And we wanted to help them along as much as we could, trying to get them a package in their hand that all they had to do was, hook up their fuel and a pump on the back end or whatever, and they'd be able to go and not have, all the growing pains of trying to switch over to Tier 4.
Yeah, kind of like Zach said, previously we were more probably reactive a little bit of, the customer coming to us and saying, oh, can we do this? Can we do this? And now we've kind of took some of those, when we started the program, we kind of took some of those things that they were looking for in the past and things we've heard, what they wanted, in the future, and kind of applied it to the power unit from the beginning, and kind of designed around it from the beginning. So we actually had a kind of a turnkey package right out of the gate.
How long is that design life cycle? Like from first iteration to where it's at now? I'm sure it's even had like iterations after you've stamped it as this is our product now. I'm sure it's still even evolved since then. But like, what's that product life cycle like?
First one, it took like the first power units. We started with the 03 series. I guess kind of the 03 and 05.
Yeah,
because we combined the diesels with the LSIs, or the large spark ignited. And that first one was probably, I think you're right. I had, going back to 2015, it was probably a good maybe year and a half, with some of the growing pains of getting some of the, that was brand new information coming out of Kubota. This is kind of a brand new electronic diesel. So there were some growing pains of, oh, actually you need to do this with either controls or, figuring out what the charge air needed to be.
Yeah, that was kind of the big one from what I remember, was the charge air cooler, making sure we got within the limitations that Kubota had provided for us.
Yep. Following all their rules of the temperature drops and delta T's and delta P's. Delta T is temperature and delta P is the pressure drop across the cooler. I think our biggest thing was probably our delta P. I remember having a couple different iterations to hit their marks for that.
Yeah, and then you got to wait each time for the supplier to provide you the new component to put in there. So, you test it, and then you got to wait like 6-8 weeks before you get the new part, and then put it in there, and then run the test again, and try it. Just that whole repeated process, and it took quite a while.
What's that? Is this the first project for something you guys are working on design wise that's not for a specific customer, a specific purpose, but for like a whole product line? Is this the first project like that?
Yeah.
What's that like from just how you approach that project? I'm sure it's different. Can you just talk a little bit about how you guys approach a project that might have been a little bit different? We don't have a customer necessarily saying we want this, and this. It's more open for you guys and the sales team to determine what you want to hit.
I remember pulling in. It seemed like the whole company at the time. We pulled in, sales, even service. Pulled in a lot of different people. Basically, kind of had like a brainstorming session to see like, okay, what do we want to do here? Is width of the whole unit, is that more important, or for if we talk to especially sales, they want the smallest, most compact product for the engine to fit in, most different machines. But at some point, you have to make a decision. Is it going to be narrow or is it going to be short? That was one of the discussions we had. Do we have a target for a certain width? Do we have a target for a certain height? Length, there's not as much options there, but there's a little bit there. Do we want more of a base? The mounting. Do we want more of a suspended engine mounts? What kind of engine mounting do we want to do? There was a lot of discussion up front before we even started putting models together, before we actually...
Yeah, and like how we wanted to put the sheet metal on there, how were we going to attach it, and, how big do we want the frame that it was going to sit on? How big did we want that to be? Do we want it to be like we kind of had done before, a little bit wider, kind of oversized, or something much more compact, which kind of changed the way we designed up the sheet metal that went around the whole engine.
Do you guys, when you do that, do you look at what else is out there in the industry of how to improve what's already out there? Or is it a completely clean slate where you're like, if we had to design something purely from the ground up, this is what we do?
I think at the time we asked a lot feedback from our sales department to see what our customers wanted, because even just expanding to Kansas City area and Modesto, we've noticed that the locales are different for what those customers are looking for. So but what someone's doing in the East, it may not necessarily apply for what we're doing here, for whatever reason. But yeah, we kind of asked what our salesmen are getting asked by their OEMs.
I was going to make a joke about if you wanted 10 different opinions on how to build something, just ask 10 different customers, right? I remember that process being a lot of like just data gathering and then like distillation of trying to figure out what the common needs were, looking at customers that were using current product and how they were using it, and what what worked well or what we needed to improve, what options we got asked for a lot that needed to be included. There's two other things I know that were high on our list of criteria. One was like modularity, right? We wanted previous designs. If you wanted an open unit, you got one version with one frame and one mounting system and one air cleaner arrangement and everything else. And if you wanted an enclosed system, like everything was different. And so we wanted that modularity where we could take an open unit and easily add an enclosure to it or easily add other features to it. So it wasn't really dependent. It was a lot more modular. You could just bolt on options as you needed. And then the other one was just like part usability and commonality. I remember a lot of engineering work going into like the goal was to have a range of power units where a customer could just come and a la carte pick their power node, their fuel, and then a bunch of options, and they were going to get something that mounted the same way, had the same crankshaft center line, right, had the right CG, had the same set of options that generally looked and fit about the same, and let them have flexibility across all that stuff. And so that was a huge part of the engineering constraints, was just getting that modularity and getting that like part reuse and commonality across a bunch of different parts of the platform.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were able to get, including, the dry fuel, gasoline, diesel, 6 different engines into one base frame?
Yeah.
Which is, prior to that was almost unheard of. So it was a lot of looking at CG and fighting that and kind of finding the compromises that, just to nail down the base frame was a big step.
And one of them is a 3-cylinder versus the other one's being a 4-cylinder.
True. Yep. That's a little hiccup. That was a little more fun.
Did you guys learn anything after you went to market with it? Was there anything that a customer asked for that you guys didn't necessarily talk about beforehand that maybe you changed or adopted as like a standard feature or package option after it had gone to market, anything like that? Or is everything
I think
kind of fit in?
It's almost always evolving. There's always something that, can we have this? Can we have this? There's always a little widget, we have to add to it. I think the first one was just adding an L129 oil level to it. That was
the side gauge.
Mm-hmm.
one of the advantages of a common or electronic engine is that we can put a lot of functionality in with software. And so the control panel selection was a huge piece up front.
True.
We had looked at a really wide variety of different controllers to use. There's a big price range too. We can make this thing work with a couple LED lights and a key switch for $40. But we eventually settled on the PowerView series because we knew that with that platform we could make that controller do anything we needed. We had total control of the software. We wrote it from the ground up, and we maintain it still today. And we have plenty of customers that we write custom pieces and add-ons for that module that they need for their particular machine. They want that controller to also run their hydraulics or monitor other machine functions, and we can do that. We can just, it's as easy as flashing new software down the module. So a lot of what customers ask for is really just behavioral stuff. It's not necessarily hard parts. And so
True.
We have a lot of modularity also built into the software side of these packages, not just the physical, piece.
Interesting. Well, getting into software stuff, one of the things that we could touch on, I guess, is you guys have always used SolidWorks, I think, since the start of when you guys joined. Was it SolidWorks?
Yes, it was SolidWorks when I started.
Yeah. And can you guys just kind of go through for myself, who's not an engineer, kind of what that tool allows you to do and how you use it in your department?
So SolidWorks is a 3D CAD software. So what it allows us to do, we get like the engine models from our engine suppliers, and it allows us to put it in into an assembly, and we can put all the components that we want on there that we design up. I kind of go through all that, but everyone kind of be bored about it. But so yeah, we can design up all the pieces that we want, and just kind of knowing the constraints of machining and bending and fabrication, and put that all together in an assembly and just make sure everything kind of fits. And once that's done, then we send out our drawings and get our parts in and all that, and it allows us to definitely make things consistently the same. And the first time we get something, it fits reasonably well. There's sometimes
I thought you were going to say every time.
Not every time, because sometimes the models we get, there's something just that not quite right that is missed or didn't translate in right. But for the most part, using a good 3D software, we can get there where it's pretty dang close to what it needs to be right off the bat.
Can you do are there any I don't know how you guys test stuff. I mean,
there's simulation.
You can simulate.
Yeah, you can simulate kind of the basic is the load simulation. So like how much weight is on a component, you can figure out, okay, this piece here, this leg is going to see 200 and some pounds or whatever. And you can load it in the software and see, hey, is this thing going to pass or not? Oh yeah, right here it's going to fail. It's got a high stress point. This isn't going to work.
Do you ever test something that looks in SolidWorks like it's going to go well and then just have it completely not? Are there any?
I've never had that happen.
Really?
Actually,
it's pretty spot on.
Yeah, it's been pretty spot on. I mean, outside of someone or you doing something to it that it wasn't intended for. So if it's design or if the usage is what it's intended for, it's pretty spot on.
Zach, you ever look like something bad happened once?
No, we had a recent shipment.
Yeah,
that showed up, and our engine mounts were caved in, and the person that got it was like, "Well, you didn't design your engine mounts right." And she looked at it and be like,
shipping damage.
Yeah. It's like we could probably tell you exactly how much shock force this saw in order to come up with that kind of deformation. We've done the simulation, we know what it can take, and somebody had to be trying to drop that thing to get it that bad. But to Kyle's point, especially anything that's critical gets analyzed. And we're designing to a pretty healthy factor of safety of at least 2, right?
Oh yeah.
Usually it's quite a lot higher than that. I think the minimum factor of safety of 2, which means any part's capable of handling twice as much load as we expect to be put on it in the worst case scenario. So we're building an industrial product, so we're not typically constrained by weight, right? Not like the aerospace industry where like every pound costs, $10,000 of rocket fuel or whatever. But so we're typically not afraid to just overbuild stuff if we're unsure, but we can work with a pretty healthy factor of safety.
When Kyle and Cody, when you guys first started, if this project was like on the table in the first year when you guys started, were you prepared for a project like this, or is this something that like you needed that time to work up into?
If you knew 6 years ago you'd still be working on this project, is that what you're
Yeah.
No, like I mean,
there's
just like the capabilities of like I'm sure you guys have stacked capabilities and
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we've learned along the way in in our testing from our customers and stuff like that, in the assembly process, things of those natures that we've learned better ways of doing things. I don't think at the very beginning of my career I could have created what we have now for the P and the G series and had it come out right,
That's got to feel pretty cool though to
Yeah.
know that like you guys have progressed that much as a department and just as an engineer. I'm sure.
I mean, just when we were originally, not separated as an application and design, we were seeing, we were doing our own design at the time. We were also seeing other applications, OEMs. And I think that actually honestly helped.
Yeah.
We were able to see multiple different installations of, the same engine or a variation of the same engine. And we were able to see what worked, what didn't. I think that really helped to figure out what works well.
And why it doesn't work,
Correct. Yep.
Tony, can you give a little perspective, like from the business development standpoint, when you come in and look at this as a product on the business side, having an engineering team that this was designed, tested, built at AIE, can you just talk a little bit about the benefits of having? I mean, we're still I would classify AIE as a small business still, but
Sure.
like having a small team of engineers tightly woven into that product, what's it like coming in from the business perspective, looking at it as a product? Muzzle the dog.
Well, I was going to give a little context to that question.
Yeah,
too.
go ahead.
When we we acquired HG Makelab at the beginning of 2019, so our P series range in the up to about 65 horsepower was pretty well defined. We'd been building it for a number of years. That was the first product that we did. We had it pretty well built out, and so when we came out there, we introduced that product and we did some training out there and kind of went through the lineup. And at the time, we were pretty close to done with the G series product. I think we were at least in the testing phase of G series stuff. And so, when Tony came on board during that transition, it was kind of like in the middle of the process. So we had the power units mostly done and ready to go, and then really I think we used Tony and a lot of the team out in Modesto to bring some of that voice of the customer on the generator side, because we were still trying to make some of those decisions for generators in terms of features and power nodes and things like that. So that's that Tony kind of got thrown in the middle of the process in that respect.
Yeah. Finishing up where I was previously. Yeah, I mean, we at HG Makelab didn't have any of those products developed, so it was a natural fit. And being an engineer myself, it was great to come in and appreciate right away the quality, how things were designed, the serviceability. Everything was the biggest thing on those was the emissions requirements, and made sure everything was built to the delegated assembly process. So you could literally take what Kubota wasn't providing in terms of an IPU, and finally you had that, and you could take it right to the customer and plug it in. So it was a real win-win for the customer at that point.
Yeah, that hits on an important piece we didn't talk about too, which was the other design criteria was we wanted to minimize any kind of emissions responsibility that anyone we sold it to had. So we are the final emissions assembler on all these products. We take care of all the end of line testing, all the reporting and responsibility that goes along with being a final assembler from an emissions perspective. And so we're in a better position to do that because we're already doing it as our role as a distributor. But anyone that's it's a totally different set of criteria to go set up somebody that wants to be their own final assembler for a product. It's just contracts and time and a bunch of other work. So it's important for us that we're able to do that and not pass any of that emissions burden on to the customers for these products. And that really informed a lot of the design. There are certain things that we have to have, done that do hamstring us a little bit on the product, but for the most part, that stuff's pretty invisible to the end user at this point.
Yep. I guess, we wanted to make a unit that was, to some of the smaller OEMs, that are taking maybe 10 units a year, almost no difference to them, from, they're buying tier 3 stuff to tier 4 because all of the emissions related items are taken care of for them. So they don't, like you said, don't have to do the reporting. They don't have to, file with EPA or anything like that. They're hooking up fuel like they always did.
Yeah.
And installing the unit.
Yeah, a lot of small manufacturers learn for the first time what that means and how much of a pain that can be going through the Flex program, TPEM program, where they had to file notices at the beginning of the year. They had to do reporting, or beginning of the year, and they had to do reporting at the end of the year. And they were sending documents to EPA, which freaked a lot of people out. They just would rather EPA don't know who they are and just leave me alone. Let me just build my machine. And so that was another piece. We were able to separate that burden from a lot of those small customers. And with just a couple of caveats. There's some parts and pieces on these power units that you can't touch or change. That impact the emissions, and really, as long as we can enforce those rules, and it's pretty easy, they don't have to worry about anything.
What do you guys see? What is there a next evolution to the product that you eventually get to, a higher horsepower range, or what? Are you pretty much still in that mode of if something comes up, we'll evolve with it, or is there a future evolution that you could see?
You want to talk about what's currently on the dyno?
Yeah, right now we have we've got kind of two things. We are going to higher horsepower. Kubota's got the new 200 plus engine, the V5009. That's kind of a groundbreaking engine for them. It's a 5-liter 4-cylinder. We're currently working on that, and then I think the next for the industry is going to hybrid. So we're starting to work with some more, making a hybrid unit with our engines and adding those options to our repertoire.
Yeah, I think one of the main focuses for next year is really starting this process all over for hybrid powertrain. How do we offer all that same benefit, modularity, ease of installation, range of accessories and options in a hybrid powertrain? And that is an open question as far as the industry is concerned. And so we're gonna work on applying what we know and what we've done currently with just straight, internal combustion products to hybrid powertrain, and that's going to be an evolution. That's we could probably sit back 6 years from now and talk about how it's still changing, but that's really, I think, our next big path. Aside from adding on different power nodes and different options as different engines become available, at this point it's fairly easy to plug in a different engine to our existing platform, design the parts and pieces that change is impacted by, and then retest it. That's fairly straightforward now. But a whole new architecture, I think, is going to be needed.
Tony, you were really instrumental in the post-design, post-compliance process of the G series in terms of deployment into it being a legitimate product. Can you just talk a little bit about the hurdles that were ahead of you when you came into that project, and kind of you've made a lot of progress there, and kind of where you started and where it's at now in terms of getting it in the hands of actual customers?
Yes. So took a great product line, something that was built very robust, really an off-grid, base load, prime power, if you will, built for the irrigation industry. And what we needed to do was first evaluate from a voice of customer perspective what components were missing to really apply it to more of a broad customer base, even going as far as to where you could plug it in as a standby backup power in parallel with the utility. So first thing to do is to go out and get voice of the customer. Hey, here's our product. Here's what we have today. And we had an awesome place to start, but the next steps were to try to figure out what components we were missing. So we expanded into product offerings such as UL 142 sub-base tanks. We looked at sound enclosures, of which we have now. We added options such as battery chargers, block heaters, blocker coolant hose heaters. Expanded into having transfer switches as a product offering so that you could really apply this. And then finally pricing everything, getting it to a format that you could get out. And we set up a reseller network, authorized reseller network throughout our AOR. And it's really started to take off because we are still one of the only companies that has a spark ignited product. Again, reviewing the product line a little bit, anywhere from 9 to 50 kW in spark ignited and diesel. Spark ignited being both gasoline, liquid propane, vapor propane, and natural gas. And we offer those in a prime power application. So we have the emission certifications that not only made EPA, CARB, and local air districts, but most of the generator world has not focused on that area. So particularly at 20, 30, and 50 kW, we really have an attractive product. And we've made some tremendous inroads in through the reseller network and also directly starting to get into the microgrid space and other areas of hybrid and solar power. So it's really been a cool product, and it's really been cool to help to be a part of developing that.
That's cool. Well, looking back, I think as a distributor, an engine distributor, and bringing in our own engineering department, and how long was that? 12 or 13 years ago?
Before anybody in this room.
Well, were you our first engineer when you came on?
No, there was two before me.
Before me, there was Jeff, and before
Tim
him,
Andre.
Tim. Yeah,
That's right.
Yeah, early 2000s, like maybe 2003, 2004 is when the first engineer came on board, and that was, it has just been an ongoing process after that, and building the team, and just adding more capability and more people, and we keep finding markets and uses for more. We need to expand the team again next year, and keep adding to our capabilities. But that was kind of a bright line in the company history, because before, say, 2004, we had gone 30 years without an engineer. So the stuff that we were building is really stuff that was just getting kind of cut and welded back in the shop, and we relied, the company relied on engineer and application expertise from our vendors a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But bringing that stuff in house was really a big, important step. And sitting here today, it sounds a little silly that engineering is important, but in the early 2000s, that wasn't nearly as obvious in the distribution space. Distributors were a lot more focused on just bringing product into the warehouse, shipping product out of the warehouse. But distribution has really evolved a lot to require engineering expertise in house and require the ability to do value-added manufacturing and all the other things that we're doing today. It's a must in the engine distribution space today.
Tony, how about vendors and finding and identifying resellers for this product? Is there a criteria you look for when you're trying to identify a good partner in terms of getting these in the hands of end users?
Yeah, obviously most of the people that have become resellers are already in that generator space, if you will. So they had to have some background or criterion to where they could support the product. We looked at generator. A lot of them are generator distributors from other major brands. Some are in the irrigation space. Others are in the generator installation world. So maybe have a broad brush line of generators, but this fit a key niche for them. So that's basically what I would term who would be the best candidate, or who have been the best candidates to play with our G Series line as authorized resellers.
Yeah, I think it's probably important to point out that the generators that we're building are not the kind of generators you're going to go get at Tractor Supply, right? It's not like you go pick it up off the shelf, put a quart of oil in it and pull a cord and then just start plugging your stuff into it. The G series was really designed to be integrated into an application or another piece of equipment. So whether that's an irrigation unit or a spray foam rig or a microgrid or whatever, but there's a little bit of installation and integration required for the G series. We did that to maintain some freedom and modularity so that it could be used in a bunch of different ways for the customer. So when we look for our reseller partner, somebody that we're looking to take this to their local market, it needs to be somebody that understands generators, understands applications, understands the installation of the product, and not just, again, we're not just a box in, box out, but somebody that really understands the product at that level.
What about from a vendor side of things? One of our sheet metal enclosure vendors is 40 miles down the street from us in TMCO. Can you guys just talk through a little bit about, procuring vendors, trying out product from different vendor? Like what is that process like?
Yeah. So, basically going out, once we got the voice of customer, the components we were missing, then it was out to vendors that we already had established relationships with, and ones that I personally knew of that could provide the products we needed to bolt on to our already very established G series. So sound enclosures, sub-base fuel tanks, the battery chargers to a lesser extent, because we did that. Block heaters we already had internally, but things of that nature, the major components that we needed, transfer switches. So reached out to a number of suppliers, obviously went through that process to make sure they were the correct ones that fit our needs the best, and just established the relationships and got the product designed to our requirements. And then finally, gone down the path of ordering it. We
have a lot of obscure, weird AIE, we have one of those bottle opener things that we have with TMCO, one of our metal vendor. Are they a metal vendor? What do you call them?
Metal fabricator.
Fabricator? Yeah, thank you.
I call them metal bender.
Metal bender. Just talk a little bit about that relationship in terms of it's got to be helpful to have those guys literally down the street.
It is. That we call in favors every so often, and when we make a mistake or need something in a rush that we didn't think we needed, and they can put it or make it for us as quickly as possible in a week or so, if we really push them and call in a lot of favors, they can get us something right away, and we can test it out, and it really speeds up the process for us. So it's really nice having somebody like that local.
Yeah, TMCO has been a great partner and kind of where we've gone with the Power Unit series and the G series. But yeah, I think they've expanded their capabilities too. From they have a whole backstory. They started in a little container shed, basically a machine shed, and have expanded to what they are today. And we've looked around for different metal benders. Coin Zach's term, and it just always comes back for TMCO. But we're still looking for. It seems like we're always looking for different vendors in the wire harnesses and metal or
exhaust tubing,
exhaust pipes.
Been a one, yeah.
Yep.
Are they our largest vendor?
What's that?
Are they our largest vendor, TMCO?
Our engine vendors are definitely the largest vendors.
I guess for
probably in terms of our spend, I would say that's probably true.
Yeah. For engineered components.
Yeah.
So any other? So we have the SQ series of generators, the super quiet. We've got our P series power units, our G series generator sets. Is there any other? Could you foresee AIE diving into any other product lines in the future? Or is it just...
We talked about hybrid series a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we did.
Are we going to call it the H series?
So...
That's what's on the whiteboard.
Say what happened in our leadership meeting, because it came up so fast, and we just, didn't even talk about it. We just adopted it like it was a thing immediately.
Yeah, we did. Talking about setting priorities for next year in terms of what we need to be working on and looking into the future. We started talking about needing... it was funny. We were talking about... We really probably need a range of products that is, modular and that we can offer to customers. And really, it's we just redescribed the P series, but, for hybrid power products. And so, yeah, it'll probably end up being called the H series, but seems like a natural extension now, although we kind of started talking about it in its own context, which is a little funny.
Kyle, what did you think when you heard about the H series for the first time?
Craziness.
Yeah, I mean, we don't, we could pull some stuff out of our heads, and I think everyone in this room has a different idea about what it's going to be. It's that early, but I think as we look into the next 10 years of what the market's going to be, I think we're going to see a lot of fracturing of the technologies required to do the job. Right now, the job any job can pretty much be done with a diesel engine, right? From 0 to thousands of horsepower, you can put a diesel engine in there and get the job done. It makes enough power for the machine and meets the requirements. And as we move into the next 10 years in the industry, I see that fracturing down through a lot of different technologies, from alternate fuels to full electric to hybridization to fuel cells, and there's tons of them. And so I think trying to stay ahead of that curve is going to be a challenge, and this is where we're going to start.
Cool. I thanks guys for hopping in with us. It's a new thing, obviously, but thank you guys for diving into something weird, something new. Appreciate it.
Yeah, giving TMCO a free plug.
Yeah, right? Maybe we get a free pen holder cut out or something.
Hey. Well, for as often as they get us stuff, I think we probably owe them.
Yeah, they've really been instrumental in what we do. It's an important partner.
This podcast brought to you by TMCO. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to Engineuity. We record and release a new episode every month. Be sure to follow us at Engineuity Podcast on Instagram for updates about future episodes and industry news.